Now, the BBC has reported that Steve Measham, a former resident of a North Wales care home, has apologised to Lord McAlpine and his family, saying he was not the man who abused him. It comes soon after Lord McAlpine's lawyers said they're preparing to take legal action against any media who defamed his reputation. Well, Stephen Abell is the former director of the Press Complaints Commission, and he joins me now. This apology this evening, I presume, quite makes your point in that there shouldn't be trial by new media.
Well, it's very difficult. I mean, there is a broadly new ecology forming around how the media works. This was a story that was produced on Newsnight, a BBC traditional media, without naming the alleged abuser. There then was a flurry on Twitter where really it was a rush to gossip by people. A name got circulated. People were quite excited by the fact that they thought they had the inside track. Evidently, they were wrong. And so the pressure builds. People start talking about it without not necessarily knowing very much about it themselves. Then The Guardian published the fact that this guy has been named, but make clear that probably based on an erroneous assumption. And now, 2 weeks later or 10 days later, we have the person at the centre of it saying this wasn't the person to whom he was referring. So it's become quite a circular situation, but it's part of the new ecology of the media.
And the BBC having carried this story, as it were, do you think they now have very serious questions to answer?
Well, it's difficult for them because they would make the point that they didn't feel they had enough evidence to name anyone, accurately so as it turns out. But they did start the hair running, and they will want to look at in Newsnight what the basis for the story was. But no one is suggesting that the fact of the abuse did not happen, but merely the person who was alleged to have done it was not the person that he was rumoured to be. So I think the Newsnight might say, look, there was a story to tell here, but the problem with the world as it is now, and it's not always a negative thing. I mean, the presence of social media means lots more interaction, lots more communication, and in abuse stories, that can be a positive thing. If people can talk to one another, they can get strength and confidence from one another, and that can lead to people coming forward. But the flip side is that if wrong rumours get started, if people talk on Twitter without knowing any of the facts, and people do that all the time when they're talking to their friends on the phone or in pubs, you don't know very much, but you want to have an opinion, so you say something. It's quite different actually to publish that. And what we're starting to learn with Twitter is people publish, they put something on the screen, it can then get retweeted, it can then gain a momentum of its own. And so it's not just the same as talking nonsense to your friends. It's putting out very serious allegations that may have a real impact on someone down the line.
So how then do you stop this trial by new media, this trial by Twitter?
Well, I think it's one of those things that people will have to grow up with the medium. I mean, Twitter is, although it's been what feels around for a long time, it's still relatively new. So I think people will have to learn to take responsibility before they tweet. I mean, it's an agent of very free expression, which is a very positive thing. But people have to recognise that ability to freely express comes with a responsibility, and it does also mean that when they speak, when they tweet, they are subject to the laws of the land. So I think there's going to be a growing up period for both people on Twitter and the medium itself, and the laws of the land do apply. So libel laws apply. We had a case recently of people being convicted for naming a rape victim, so contempt laws will also apply. And there's got to be a balance struck, because what we don't want to see is a too much of an enforcement of laws, the police being involved sometimes when they're not, to clamp down on people freely expressing themselves. But there needs to be a growing up on both sides just to see the effect that this medium can have.
And is this something that you're hoping that Leveson has addressed?
I think it's very difficult for him. I mean, one cannot regulate Twitter, and one of the vastly serious problems that Leveson will face is that he can make any decision he likes about the traditional print media, and there are various suggestions swirling around about statutory underpinning. But the great elephant in the room has been and always will be this presence of Twitter, of Facebook, of blogs, of the entire American establishment, which sits away from this country, but we can read freely. There are blogs and online sources there. So the notion of the free circulation of information, which is a great historical fact now, people can talk to more people more freely than they ever have done before. How you try to regulate that, or regulate one corner of it, one defined corner of it, becomes hugely problematic. So I'm sure Leveson will be very aware of this issue. But what the solution is in terms of regulation, I think is very, very difficult.
We know that Lord McAlpine is going to pursue legal action. Should it then be something that the new media regulate themselves? Should Twitter really be policing what's going on with the people that use that medium?
I think that goes against the heart of the philosophy of Twitter. I think that in terms of regulating themselves, it's something that people should do individually. They should think before they tweet, and very often a lot of stories that come out now are examples of people who engage their thumbs before engaging their brain, and they get very excited about something, they say it, and then they may come to regret it. So the notion of regulating yourself is something that should take place on an individual basis. But people must be aware when they are communicating on Twitter, it's not just talking to their friends, it's saying something broadly in public, and therefore the laws of the land, the laws that bind newspapers, that bind broadcaster like Sky News, will affect them. So the law of libel will affect people on Twitter. The laws of contempt clearly do, and harassment clearly has been seen to be enforceable on Twitter. So the laws do exist, and I think there probably needs to be an awareness that people, when they are putting in writing their thoughts, need to know that in certain very heightened situations that could cause problems.
Stephen Abell, former director of the Press Complaints Commission, thank you for your time.
Thank you.